Hello, very good afternoon to everyone present here. This is Tanvi. On behalf of our Optom iBits team, I would like to welcome you all to our iBits e-learning session. A brief introduction about our program. The iBits e-learning session is initiated by for Optom and is an interactive program while we discuss optometric topics. Today, we have Mr. Rahul Roy, who will speak about nystagmus. So before we start with the session, I would like to give a brief introduction about Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul graduated from the Tripura University in 2013 and holds a Master in Clinical Optometry from Amity University. He was selected by Young Leader Program organized by Indian Vision Institute in the year 2016 to 17. He is currently working as an assistant professor at Nethudama School of Optometry, Bengaluru, affiliated to Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Karnataka since 2016. He has an experience in teaching core optometry subjects such as binocular vision and low vision. He has also published several papers in national and international journals. He has keen interest in optometry education as well as research and guides optometry students in several projects.
Thank you, Tanvi, for the kind words. I would like to congratulate Foroptom team for their great effort to providing e-learning platform to the all optometrists, basically from India and Nepal. So I'm going to start my presentation.
We have Ms. Kriti and Hiral Patel saying shaking of images and object is moving.
Yeah. Any other answers?
Ms. Anu says image is not steady, involuntary movement, to and fro movement,
Okay.
oscillopsia,
Okay.
shaking. We have Evo Technology saying shaking image with fast and slow movement.
Yeah, correct. So it is a shaking of this image, which is not normal to our day-to-day life. It is an abnormal condition in which the image shakes. So this is actually today's topic. The topic is nystagmus. So nystagmus is a condition. It's actually not a disease. It is a symptom of these underlying conditions. So we can correlate this nystagmus with our fever. So fever is also not a disease. It is just a symptom of underlying conditions. So if we have any infections, so the first manifestation would be fever. So here it is written that treat the underlying disease, not the thermometer. So similarly in nystagmus also, we have to treat the underlying conditions as well as the nystagmus. So today's contents are definition, mechanism and prevalence, terminologies, characteristic features, types, clinical evaluation and the treatment. So from the definition, it is visible that nystagmus is involuntary rhythmic to and fro oscillation of one or both eyes. It may be presenting with sign of either a pathologic afferent visual pathway lesion or a disorder in the oculomotor control. So here you can see that nystagmus is involuntary. Involuntary means which is uncontrollable, which is not under our control. Rhythmic means it acts in a rhythm. To and fro oscillation means it starts from a particular position and it ends in that same point. So next we have to discuss about the mechanisms which controls the eye movement. So there are mainly three mechanisms. Number one, fixation. Number two, vestibulo-ocular reflex. Number three is neural integrator. So in our college days, we had learned about fixation. So fixation in primary position involves the visual system's ability to detect drift of a foveating image and signal of an appropriate corrective eye movement to the refoveate the image of regard. So we had learned that halo vision. Do you remember the concept of halo vision? So in that halo vision concept, they had told that if an image is focused only at the fovea, you will get a crisp, clear image. If you go towards the periphery from the fovea, it would be little blur, and at the extreme periphery it would be too much blur. It is because of the concentration of cones. So if an image is not foveated properly on the fovea, you will see blur. So our natural tendency of our eye is to refoveate that image on the fovea to see it clearly. So this is all about fixation. Next is vestibulo-ocular reflex. So the vestibulo-ocular reflex is a complex system of neural interconnection that maintains foveation of an object during the changes in head position. So in that we have three semicircular canals present in our ears. So basically we all have practical experience that when we shake our head, the image doesn't become blurry. This is because of this vestibulo-ocular reflex. Next is neural integrator. So neural integrator, when the eye is turned to an extreme position, suppose in the nasal extreme lateral or nasal gaze the of the orbit, the fascia and the ligaments that suspend the eye exert an elastic force to return the eye to the primary position. To overcome that force, we have another force of extraocular muscle which acts totally opposite to that fascia and the ligaments. So in that we have three important components. First one is cerebellum, next is ascending vestibular pathways and oculomotor nuclei. So cerebellum is a connection point between your spinal cord and your brain. So your cerebellum is also known as your mini brain. So any problem in the cerebellum, vestibular pathways and oculomotor nuclei will create a problem in the oculomotor thing. Next is the prevalence. So according to Sheeman and Wick, the nystagmus affects about 1 in every 5,000 to 10,000 persons in the world. So now moving forward, we need to know some terminologies. So the first one is amplitude, frequency, intensity, null zone, pursuit and saccade movement, jerk and pendular movement. So amplitude is the extent of nystagmus. So how much it is extending from the central gaze of your position. So we can classify into three types: fine, moderate, and large. So if it is less than 5 degrees, it is fine. If it is 6 to 15 degrees, it is moderate. And if it is more than 15 degrees, it is classified as large. So in the picture, you will be able to see that the eye is moving towards the nasal side. So according to the movement of this eye, we can tell that from the central fixation point or the central gaze, how much it is moving towards the periphery. So if it is less than 5 degrees, it is classified fine. If it is 6 to 15 degrees, it is moderate. If it has had a large extent, it is large. It is more than 15 degrees. Next, we'll discuss about the frequency. It is the number of to and fro movements in 1 second. So in 1 second, it will count your eye movement. So how much it has moved. It is described as cycles per seconds or hertz. So you can see here in the eye is moving and it is a to and fro movement. It is starting from a particular point and it is ending in that particular point. So if the movement of the eye is 1 to 2 hertz, it is slow. If it is 3 to 4 hertz, it is medium. If it is more than 5, it is considered as fast movement. So the basic concept of this frequency has come from the pendular clock. So the pendular clock also has a similar to and fro movement. Next, we have to know about intensity. Intensity is basically a combination of the amplitude and the frequency. So if you multiply the amplitude with the frequency, you will get the intensity of nystagmus. Now null position, the null zone, which is very important. It is the position where nystagmus is minimized. The position with respect to the orbit of the eye where the intensity is least. So in this picture, you will be able to see that this is the right eye. So in that temporal area, the movement is least, and in the nasal area, the movement is more. Can you observe that? This null zone is very important regarding our refraction. Next is pursuit movement. So one picture is there. What can you observe from this one? I need the answer. Can you write it in the chat box? What can you observe from the picture?
Audience, please tell your answers in the chat box. Birds are moving together in a sync. The birds are
Birds
flying
are
in a
moving.
sequence.
Okay.
Birds flying.
Okay.
Then
So here
following.
yeah. Okay, so here what you have to do, you have to focus in any one of the birds. So if you trace them, it would be a slow movement of the eye. So pursuit movement is basically a slow movement. It is like a tracing movement of a moving object. Next, uh, what can you observe from this picture?
Audience, please your answers in the chat box. Randomly changing pictures.
Randomly changing, okay. Anything else?
Tracking a ball.
Tracking a ball.
Frequent change of images.
Okay, frequent change of images. So suppose you have gone to a ground to watch a cricket match, and Dhoni or anyone, Paras Khatka had hit a six. So it would be considered as a second movement, which would be quick movement, which would be simultaneous of the both eye, and it would be a jump movement. It is not a smooth movement or a tracing movement. It is a jump movement. So jump movement is considered as a secondary movement. So next we'll discuss about jerk and pendular. So jerk is a slow component in one direction and fast component in the other direction. So it is defined as the direction of the fast component. So it will have two components. In one case, it will have a slow component, and another opposite case, it will have a fast component. So it may be right, left, down, or rotatory. In pendular one, the movement of equal velocity in each direction. So whatever the movement is there, it would be equivalent. So it can be vertical, horizontal, or it can be rotatory. So now we can classify nystagmus in broadly three types: physiological, early onset, and pathological. So in the next slides, we will discuss about this. So first is optokinetic nystagmus. So optokinetic nystagmus is basically a jerk nystagmus. Optokinetic nystagmus drum is held in front of the patient. So you can do it in a horizontal way, you can do it in a vertical way. So it has two phases. One is slow phase, one is the fast phase. So you will ask the patient to fixate at the target and trace the target. So when the patient is tracing the target, it is a slow phase and it is a pursuit phase. At the end of the case, the patient will have a fast phase in the opposite direction when the eye fixates for the next target. This is also known as railroad nystagmus. Most of us has traveled through train, so we have experienced that phenomena that when you are following one object uh, uh, while going through the train, this railroad nystagmus would be present. Next is vestibular caloric test. So caloric test is nothing but is if you inject cold water, uh, if you inject cold water through the semicircular canals of the ear, uh, the cold water will give opposite movement of the eye, and if you put warm water, it will give a movement in the same side. So suppose in this picture, uh, you have put cold water in the right ear. So the eyes would be obviously move in the opposite direction in the left side. If you put warm water, it will obviously move towards the same side, means in the right side. Now, the how much should be the warmness of the water? So it should be more than 44 degrees and the cold water should be 27 degrees. Then only it will work. Next is endpoint nystagmus. So it is also a type of jerk nystagmus. So it will appear only looking at the extreme lateral or upwards. So when you will see something at the extreme lateral, nasal, upward or downward, the angle of gaze should be more than 45 degrees. Then only you will be able to see that end point of nystagmus. Next, you have congenital nystagmus, also known as infantile nystagmus syndrome, which is generally present uh, during the age of 3 to 6 months. So in this, positive family history may be present in that. Next, you have nystagmus blockage syndrome. It is a rare condition. So in that, sudden esotropia will develop in infancy to dampen the horizontal nystagmus. So in the picture, you would be able to see the patient is having esotropia in left eye. So this esotropia will mimic your nystagmus. The esotropia is the cause of mimicking the nystagmus. So when you correct the esotropia, then you will be able to find out that the patient is having nystagmus in that left eye. So in the extreme gaze, extreme nasal gaze, this nystagmus blockage syndrome would be visible. Next, you have latent nystagmus. So it is also known as fusional maldevelopment nystagmus. So normally it won't be visible. If you occlude one eye, you will be able to see that the patient is having nystagmus in one eye. So it is known as fusional maldevelopment nystagmus. So here what you have to do, you have to dissociate the fusion. Then you will be able to see that nystagmus. Next you have spasmus nutans. So it is basically a triad of symptoms. Three things are there in that. You will have pendular nystagmus, you will have head nodding. Head nodding, it can be forward, it can be backward, and you can have torticollis. Torticollis is basically a head tilt or a head turn. So spasmus nutant, it is a triad. Next is gaze evoked. So it is most common type of jerk nystagmus at the 30 degree of fixation. It has a fast phase in direction of eccentric gazes. So it will not appear in the primary gaze. When you are looking at eccentric targets, this gaze evoked nystagmus will be visible. So it is visually disabling. Next, you have the type of upbeat nystagmus. So the type of jerk nystagmus with a fast phase in the upward primary position. So the causes can be lesions of medulla, cerebral dermis, and midbrain injury. So in the picture, you will be able to see the patient has a jerk nystagmus and it has a fast phase towards the superior part Next, you have down gaze, which is totally opposite to the upbeat one. It is also a jerk nystagmus. It will have a fast phase towards the downward and the primary position. So in this upbeat and downbeat, so those who are having upbeat nystagmus, while looking superiorly, their vision will deteriorate. And in downbeat nystagmus, when they are looking downwards, their vision will deteriorate. Next, you have dissociated nystagmus, which is also known as seesaw nystagmus. So it is defined as a pendulum nystagmus with elevation and intorsion, and one eye simultaneous with depression and extorsion. So basically, it acts in a pair. How it works? So one eye will have upward movement plus it will have intorsion. The other eye will have depression and it will have in conjunction with extorsion. So it is known as seesaw nystagmus. Next, we have periodic alternating nystagmus. So it is a repetitive cycling of right beating and left beating nystagmus in the primary case. So periodic alternating nystagmus is a conjugate horizontal jerk nystagmus with a fast phase beating in one direction. So the period can be 1 to 2 minutes with a pause in the null gaze 10 to 20 seconds. Next, as an optometrist, we have to do the clinical evaluation, which is very important. First, we have to take a brief history of the patient. If the patient is a kid, so birth history you have to take. Any type of injury during the birth or during the pregnancy, you have to ask for it. Next, you have to go for the visual acuity. So taking visual acuity, one practical tip I'm giving. So if there is any abnormal head movement, you have to ask someone to hold the head. So if you don't hold the head, the patient will have abnormal head movement, and along with that, you cannot take the visual acuity. So for visual acuity charts, you can take use normal visual acuity charts, Snellen's or Logma chart, or for kids, you can use the infant chart. Next, you have refraction. So how you are going to do the refraction? Refraction would be a very challenging task because the eye is moving. To see the glow, you need stability of the eye, but in nystagmus, the stability of the eye is absent. So here you have to look for the null gaze. So wherever the null gaze is present, the movement will be slow or minimum. So at that position, you will be able to do the refraction, and you can use 1% of cyclopentolate with that. Next, you have to check the ocular motility, overaction and underaction of all extraocular muscles. You have to record it. Next, you have to go for the slit lamp examination. So you have to check all the anterior segments. Next, a brief ophthalmoscopy will give you an idea about the retina and the fundus. Next is referral. If any type of referral is required, in the case of brain injury or neurological injury, don't hesitate. So you have to refer to the specialist. Now, this is important documentation of nystagmus. So, in the documentation, if we have two heads in the arrow, if it is two-dimensional, means you can see in the down one, a two-dimensional arrow, it is considered for pendular nystagmus. If you have one directional arrow, it is for jerk nystagmus. Then you can classify speed according to the number of heads of the arrow. So in that first one, you can see there is one arrow, two arrows, and three arrows. So according to the speed, you can document it with the increasing or decreasing the arrow heads. Next, amplitude. Amplitude you can classify with classification with the bars. How many bars of arrows are there? If it is one, it is slow. If it is two, it is moderate. If it is three, it is fast. Then vertical arrows would be there in vertical nystagmus. Horizontal arrows would be there in the horizontal nystagmus. In jerk nystagmus, you will have two arrows in the opposite direction. And in oblique nystagmus, you have obliquely placed arrow. So this is the basics of the documentation of nystagmus. Next, we'll discuss about the symptoms. So what are the symptoms include in nystagmus? So basically, if image is moving, so what type of symptoms you will have? So it will have dizziness, vertigo, vision related problems, holding a head in turned or tilt position, and feeling the world is shaking. Next, the treatment. The treatment we can broadly classify into two types. First is surgical, second is non-surgical. So in non-surgical part, first is glasses. So each and every effort should be made to correct the underlying refractive error, which will decrease the nystagmus. So spectacle would be your one of the choices. Next is contact lenses. So contact lenses have been reported to have reduced amplitude and frequency, which is very helpful in high emmetropes. With high refractive error, you should prescribe contact lenses. And contact lenses also have some optical advantages, like it will move synchronously with the eye so that the visual axis coincides with the optical center of the lens all the time. So it will give a clear image all the time. Next, we have the prisms. So prisms are basically used for two purposes. One is to improve the visual acuity. Next is to eliminate abnormal head postures. Next, we have acupuncture. Acupuncture is one of the ancient method used by Chinese. So in that they used to use needles, insert the needles on the skin. So some studies are there on acupuncture. So acupuncture were used in some studies. The effect of acupuncture on foveation characteristics in congenital nystagmus. So what they used to do basically, they used to insert needle on the sternocleidomastoid muscles. So the sternocleidomastoid muscle, it is situated in our neck, which used to help to move our head sideways. So in that sternocleidomastoid muscle, they used to insert a needle and they used to restrict the movement of eye. Next in drugs, we have baclofen, we have carbamazepine, and we have benzotropine. So these drugs used to reduce the flow of neurotransmitters, and by reducing the flow of neurotransmitter, it reduces the eye movements. But for long-term use, it has so many side effects. So these drugs cannot be used for long-term usage. Next, you have the surgical treatments. In surgical treatments, we have Kestenbaum technique and Anderson technique. So in these techniques, the main function of these surgeries are used to correct the head posture. It is used to correct the head posture. So in that, the surgeons used to do recession and resection. So recession is basically weakening a muscle. Resection is strengthening a muscle. So for chin elevation or chin depression, head tilts, the surgeries are suggested. Next, what latest in the management of nystagmus? Magnetic implants used to treat the dancing eye. So it's a study which is published in a journal. So this study was done by University College of London in collaboration with the Oxford University. So a researcher team had successfully used magnets to implant behind a person's eye to treat a nystagmus, and the condition was characterized by involuntary eye movement. So they had taken a 49 years old lady to implant this magnet. So one magnet was placed in the orbital floor and other magnet was implanted in the extraocular muscles. So this study has shown that after 3 years of assessment, they have shown that there was no negative term in that. So after that, you can see in the picture. So one magnet was implanted in the orbital floor and other magnet was implanted in that extraocular muscle. So by using the physics, they have reduced the eye movement. So inspired from this, uh, some physicians have started this magnetic treatment or the magnetic therapy in bone related problems also, like bone joints related movemental problems. Any questions?
Audience, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. Okay. So, the question is, what special consideration should we take while testing ocular motility, especially in patients with nystagmus, also examining visual acuity and refraction?
Okay, so I have told already in that refraction part, you need to find out the null gaze. So it would be very challenging thing that you have to do a refraction in the null in the nystagmus patient because the eye would be constantly moving. So if the eye is constantly moving, you won't be able to find out the glow and the movement of the globe. So here what you have to do in the null case, you have to do the refraction. And in the ocular motility part, you have to find out the underaction and overaction of this particular extraocular muscles.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, what type of contact lenses is best for nystagmus patients?
Actually, it depends. You can give a normal spherical contact lenses also because your job is to uh, the contact lens has the optical advantage over glasses because it moves synchronously with the eye so that the visual axis is coincided with the optical center. So your vision always will show improvement compared to glasses. So any type of contact lenses you can give in nystagmus patients.
Next question is, in case of AHP, prism base should be in which direction?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, and repeat it, sir. In case of AHP,
Hmm.
prism base should be in which direction?
Okay, so some patients with acquired nystagmus and the patient whose nystagmus worsen during the near viewing, base in prisms may help in inducing the divergence. So you need the divergence to dampening the nystagmus. So here you can use the base in prisms.
Thank you, sir. And the next is there any contact lens contradiction such as which is better, soft or RGP?
Uh, Studies have shown that in soft contact lenses are very much acceptable in nystagmus patient, but they haven't done any study on RGB contact lenses. So you can go with the soft contact lenses on. So your main motive is to clear the vision. So for clearing the vision, you can get any type of contact.
And the next question is, sir, can you tell us about the role of vision therapy in nystagmus?
Yeah. So in vision therapy, what you can do, you can give some over minus lenses. So adding a concave lens to distance correction, which will induce artificial accommodation. So that is accompanied with secondary convergence. So this is induced convergence will diminish the amplitude and the rate of nystagmus and thus enhancing the vision. So overcorrection of these minus lenses will stimulate the accommodative convergence. Otherwise, you can do the give that pilocarpine uh, And in other thing, you can give optically coupled devices also. Some optically coupled devices are there, which will reduce the eye movements.
So, sir, the next question is, how will you perform slit lamp and ophthalmoscopy examination in patients with nystagmus?
As I told, it would be a very challenging task. So in the null gaze only, you have to focus on the null gaze. So whenever the patient's eye moves towards the null gaze, you have to focus it properly. Then you will be able to perform either it is slit lamp or it is ophthalmoscopy.
Okay. So we have a question from Evo Technology. They're asking magnetic implants can treat dancing eyes if the underlying causes are not treated.
No, it will not cause the underlying treatment. So here their motive was to reduce the movement. So if the movement of the eye is reduced, so the vision will get proper. So they have done a 3-year assessment of that magnetic treatment. So after 3 years, they have found that there is no such negative thing in that magnetic implant.
Next question is, can you please elaborate the optically coupled device?
Yeah. So optically coupled device, this is a system. Actually, it is consist of high positive power spectacles lens, one, which is a combination of with a high negative power contact. So the system will rest on the principle that stabilizes the image on the retina, and it is achieved if the spectacle lens is focused in the primary image close to the center of the rotation of the eye. So two types of lenses you have to use. One is high positive power spectacle and one is high negative power spectacle. So it will refoveate your image on the fovea and it will reduce your eye movement.
So this our next question is, how after image therapy can reduce the amplitude of nystagmus?
Yeah, after image therapies were given in few patients where some studies are also there. So in that also they have tried this after image therapy as to as to stabilize the eye movement. So in conjunction with nystagmus, if you have some problem in accommodation and convergence, then this therapies will work. So this is basically for accommodation and the convergence, improvement of accommodation and convergence. So if your accommodation and convergence is improved, obviously your vision will improve in that.
The next question is, how much amount of prism to be given and how will we know that?
So in general, you can start with 7 prism diopter. So this is the starting point of the 7 prism diopter. After that, you have to check the head movement. If the head movement is reduced, then you can prescribe 7 prism diopter. After that, you have to check in a trial and error way. So if the head movement doesn't improve, so you have to increase the amount of prism.
Okay. So Evo Technology has a question saying that nystagmus amplitude is usually considered in the horizontal direction.
Hmm.
So is it considered in the horizontal direction only, sir?
No, amplitude can be both way, horizontal and vertical. So if you have a horizontal nystagmus, it would be considered in a horizontal way. If you have vertical nystagmus, it would be considered in vertical.
Okay. So another question is based on your previous question, why exactly 7 prism diopter as starting point for correction?
So it is based on a research paper. So in that research paper, they have stated that uh, a head movement which will affect your vision, uh, that type of patient you should start with a 7 prism diopter. So before 7 prism diopter, there won't be much effect with the abnormal head positions to your vision.
In conclusion, can we say that there is no satisfactory treatment to make the eye steady, and is it only to reduce the oscillation?
Yeah. So In the treatment part, it is basically a tailor-made thing. So you cannot tell that a copybook treatment is there for nystagmus. So according to the patient's condition, onset, movement, whatever the conditions are there, based on that, you have to plan your treatment. There is nothing called copybook treatment.
Could you explain about the use of Fresnel prism and management of nystagmus?
Yeah, Fresnel prism can be used in abnormal head positions. So wherever the head, abnormal head position will affect your visual field. So in that type of patient, you could with the Fresnel prism to bring the images which is out of your visual field.
So, sir, by blocking the light sense, will the nystagmus be more?
Sorry.
By blocking the light sense, will the
Mhm.
nystagmus be more?
No, it is not like that. Studies or researches we didn't find any.
And same person has asked, what is prostrate lenses?
What is?
What is prostrate lenses?
No, prostate lenses, I don't have any idea.
So I think those are the questions for today, sir.
Yeah.
So we have wrapped up with the question sessions. So thank you so much, everybody. On behalf of IBIDS and our audience, I would like to thank our speaker, Mr. Rahul Roy, for his very informative presentation about nystagmus. I'm sure this will help us all in future in any other aspect. And this was really informative, and we had a very interactive session with you, sir. We would like to have a small feedback by you.
Yeah, sure, I'll do. Thank you to everyone, those who have joined. And I would like to thank once again to the Power team. You are going to celebrate your first anniversary on 25th. So you're doing a really wonderful job.
Thank you for your kind words, sir. On that note, I would like to end our meeting and today's session. This session will soon be on YouTube, and you can stay tuned for more sessions by IBITS e-learning program by ForOptom. You can also visit us on www.optom.foroptom.com for more info on IBITS. Also, join us on social media on WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram. So guys, have a great weekend. Have a great day. Stay home. Stay safe. Thank you. Thank you, sir.